guys, the Super Review Show for another Why You Should Listen To. This is the show where I break down Spotify streaming numbers that have either really low streaming numbers or just lower numbers than I think they normally would have on artists that are just that good. You should definitely, if you're a music nut, you should definitely check out these artists that I mentioned on this show called Why You Should Listen To. As the title of this video suggests, I'm going to be talking today about Robert Johnson. Now, for the vast majority of music fans out there who know, or casual music fans, I should say, who say, well, who's Robert Johnson? Truthfully, if you want to get to know the blues, and I'm not just talking about like, Gary Clark Jr. and all them people like that, or Eric Clapton. I'm talking about where Eric Clapton and Gary Clark Jr. got their inspiration from. Robert Johnson, he was a blues player in the 1930s. We're going way back on this one. His music's on Spotify. You can check it out. But I did my own digging and research because he wrote a song called Crossroad Blues, which is actually the song Crossroads that Eric Clapton did with Cream, and then that kind of like shook my popularity. Like, oh wow, he got it from that. That's crazy. Robert Johnson was quite honestly, not the Godfather, but like he was the guy who made the blues music very mainstream. You're talking like 30s or 40s mainstream, not like 50s or 60s, but like the 1930s or 40s mainstream. So Robert Johnson, the story, I can't do the story justice, but I'm going to describe it the best I can. Here we go. There's a Netflix documentary called The Crossroad Blues, or Devil at the Crossroads or something like that on Netflix, and it's a story about how Robert Johnson basically it delves into all the detail on him and how his life was in the 30s. He was a black man. He was in the South, and like I believe it was Mississippi, if I'm not mistaken. He wanted to learn how to play the guitar. So he went to the crossroads at this one fork in the road, this one crossroads area, and he basically traded his soul to the devil in order to learn how to play guitar. I believe it was to impress a woman. Again, we're talking really early music here. Like as far as 20th century goes, very early. But you want to talk about like influences of him. I mean, so many people are influenced by him to this day. I mean, blues singers have Muddy Waters was a big one that was influenced by him. The Keith Richards, the Rolling Stones, Chuck Berry. These artists learned from his playing style. It's very, very hard guitar because it's very heavily blues-based music. It's very, very different, very, 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 very methodical. It's not necessarily like entertaining, but if you want to get to know like blues music, Robert Johnson is the king of all of it. He died when he was 27 because after he learned how to play guitar and he did a couple of recordings, he actually died at the age of 27. It's kind of sad because he sold his soul to the devil. He basically got his wish. I'm going to play guitar really well, but I lost my life to the devil. And this sounds really sketchy. This sounds really like, oh, what is he talking about here? But truthfully, if you really want to break it out, the stories down there in Mississippi and on this Netflix documentary, it's called Devils at the Crossroad. That's what it is. Really interesting stuff. Really crazy stuff on how he basically like kind of cemented the way of you could solo on a guitar, you could play different licks on a guitar, and change the world of music forever. People like Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine look up to him. A lot of people like Bruce Springsteen, The Edge from U2. I mean, there are so many other artists that can know their musical history. Even Flea from the Chili Peppers. He's a bassist, but he knows like his history and stuff like that. And it all kind of dates back to this one guy with Robert Johnson. So, and mind you, his Spotify streaming numbers are extremely low. I mean, like, a lot of the blues artists from the 50s and 40s and stuff like that, their numbers are really, 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 really low. But I would say the blues might be an underrated genre nowadays, at least in the 2020s. Because it is really, like, it's the foundation of so many forms of music. I mean, hip-hop and rock and roll all came from the blues. The only white, and I'm not trying to sound like crazy, but the only white music I could think of that or originated from white artists was country music. Like Hank Williams, like, "Yeehaw, I'm gonna ride my truck," stuff like that. But that's a really bad example. But like, Robert Johnson took the guitar and he made something different out of it. So if you want to get to know different types of blues music, different styles of different blues, it all originates back to this one guy known as Robert Johnson, and he is one of the best. He is one of the pioneers of the guitar. He's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He's in the Blues Hall of Fame. Because the guy popularized different styles on the guitar more than just like I'm gonna strum it like this. He learned how to play a certain way that made it what we now know today, like shredding or soloing. He was the guy who did that for the first time ever in the 30s. So, like I said, if I would recommend anything to you, recommend the Netflix special, Devil at the Crossroads. It's a really great documentary. I highly recommend it. And check out, I believe he only has 2 albums. There's 2 albums on Spotify. You just go to his albums and look up, like, the first song I recommend is Crossroad Blues, because that's what Eric Clapton took and made very popular in the 60s, but with his version of it, but it's really Robert Johnson's song. But yeah, so bottom line, if you have not heard of Robert Johnson, get on it. He's a very talented blues singer. He was a very talented blues singer. He was one of the best to ever do the blues, and he really pioneered the instrument of the guitar. So, but yeah, Eric Clapton looks up to him. Chuck Berry looks up to him. Muddy Waters looked up to him a lot. A lot of the blues singers and stuff like that, and blues players look up to him like, oh my God, he was so different from what Chuck Berry learned from him. Put it that way. But yeah, that's going to do it for this episode of why you should listen to it. So that's why I think you should listen to Robert Johnson and the blues as a genre as well. It's very, very methodical. It's very, very unique of its own take, if you will. You know what I mean? But yeah, Robert Johnson, a pioneer of the blues. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, listening, however you enjoyed us. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. But for all of your why you should listen to videos, keep it locked on the Super Reviews with the J-Man. It's off to rock. We'll see you guys later.